It is Sunday, the 2nd of October, 2016. I'm in front of the Unitarian Church in Montreal, just starting up my alternative spiritual practice of protesting against Unitarian Universalist injustices, abuses, and hypocrisy, which include, but are by no means limited to, falsely accusing me of the criminal act of blasphemous libel in Bill Cosby-style clergy sex abuse cover-up and denial legal bullying. We're looking at the wayside pulpit of the Unitarian Church of Montreal, basically the Unitarian Church of Montreal's church sign, as it were. Church is over here, their address sign's there, and this is what they call the wayside pulpit. I call it the wayward pulpit because often what's on here is basically a pile of bullshit. And this is, I believe, the mission statement of the Unitarian Church of Montreal, very vaguely worded. You know, our spiritual community welcomes, nurtures, inspires, challenges. Together we take action in the world. Well, as I've pointed out before, you know, that can be interpreted in a negative light. You know, for instance, you know, together Montreal Unitarians can take immoral, unethical, borderline criminal, actually criminal, just plain evil action in the world. And in fact, to some extent they do. Montreal Unitarians and the greater Unitarian Universalist religious community or spiritual community welcome all kinds of abusive clergy to be ministers. They nurture all kinds of abusive clergy as Unitarian Universalist ministers. They inspire me to protest against their clergy abuse and other injustices, abuses, and hypocrisy. And they even challenge my perfectly legitimate protest against Unitarian Universalist injustices, abuses, and hypocrisy by bringing false accusations of crimes against me. Sometimes even having me falsely arrested and charged with crimes that are clearly intended to prevent me from protesting. In December of 2000, I was arrested for allegedly violating 176.3 of the Canadian Criminal Code, which prohibits disrupting the order and solemnity of church services. So this law is clearly about disrupting an actual Sunday service, but cynical and hypocritical Montreal Unitarians somehow managed to convince the SPVM to arrest me on that charge, you know, in terms of my protest which takes place outside the church. So I was arrested, I was charged, it went to trial, and after 3 years I was finally acquitted when the Crown prosecutor could not prove a single one of the 4 or 5 points of law he had to prove beyond a reasonable doubt to obtain a conviction. So it was complete bullshit. It was complete and utter false and misuse of the law to shut down my protest. So we put down some chalk slogans here. The Unitarians cover up clergy sexual abuse, entirely truthful statement. And this sign, Church of the Image Tarnishing Ministers, well, originally it applied to Reverend Ray Drennan and his image tarnishing, but we've pluralized it. We put an S on the end there. And in fact, many other Unitarian Universalist ministers are guilty of tarnishing the image of either their local church or the larger Unitarian Universalist religious community, or both. I won't go into the details, but it's just a fact. Church that spits in God's eye. Well, this is actually it's a picket sign that was inspired by the title or the headline of the first Montreal Mirror article about my protest back in June of 1998. The headline was titled "Spitting in God's Eye." And so, yes, in their own way, Montreal Unitarians do in fact spit in God's eye. Atheist UUs are accusing me of blasphemy. Well, yes, as I just pointed out, the Unitarian Universalist Association falsely accused me of the criminal act of blasphemous libel, and the Unitarian Universalist Association leaders who are most responsible for that immoral, unethical, borderline criminal, and I'd say batshit crazy misuse of Canada's blasphemy law are in fact atheist Unitarian Universalists. Specifically, Reverend Dr. Peter Beyond Belief Morales, President of the Unitarian Universalist Association, who bears ultimate responsibility for that false, blasphemous libel accusation against me, and has yet to accept responsibility for it. Also, former Executive Vice President of the Unitarian Universalist Association, Kathleen K. Montgomery, who would have done most of the hands-on work of hiring Stikeman Elliott barristers and solicitors, litigation lawyer Maitre Marc-Andre Coulombe to falsely accuse me of blasphemous libel for allegedly, and I do say allegedly, making unfounded and vicious allegations to the effect that ministers of the association engage in such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape, when in fact my blog posts about Unitarian Universalist pedophiles and rapists are by no means unfounded, and are in fact solidly supported by evidence, including newspaper reports and of course court records of Unitarian Universalists who are actually charged, tried and convicted of such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape, such as Reverend Mac Wallace Mitchell, such as Richard Buell of First Parish Norwell, such as Stephen Craig Bullite, and others. So Unitarians cover up sexual abuse of children? Well, they absolutely do. Just one of the ways they try to cover up sexual abuse of children is by falsely accusing me of blasphemous libel in an effort to intimidate me into removing blog posts that tell the truth about sexual abuse of children by Unitarian Universalists, such as I said before, Reverend Mac Wallace Mitchell, Richard Buell, Stephen Craig Bullite, and other Unitarian Universalists, including Unitarian Universalist ministers, who are in fact guilty of committing such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape, and have in fact been charged, tried, and convicted of such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape. And I'd like to point out that, for every Unitarian Universalist minister or every Unitarian Universalist Sunday school teacher who's actually been charged, tried, and convicted of pedophilia and or rape, there are others who were never charged, tried, or convicted. In other words, they basically got away with it. And the Unitarian Universalist Association actually, does protect ministers who are clearly guilty of sexual assault and so on. So, when it's within their ability to protect the minister, they do so. And in fact, even after people have been convicted, they're still trying to cover it up.
Comment?
Hello, bonjour.
Bonjour.
Oui, je parle à la caméra.
Oh.
C'est pas grave, c'est pas grave. I was talking to the camera, doing my little monologue here, and this guy thought I was talking to him. So anyhow, so we're just going to walk back and forth with a picket sign that says unsafe sect. We'll just have a look at it here. This is, one of my older, it's been remade, I had to remake it. But this is a reissue of an old picket sign that dates back to at least the year 2000. It used to have a question mark after sect, softening the blow a little bit. But there's really no question that the Unitarian Universalism is not safe in terms of a variety of things, including clergy sexual misconduct and the cover-up and denial thereof. In fact, it's not safe in the sense also of not just people being a victim of clergy abuse, whether that clergy abuse is sexual or non-sexual, but it's not safe even after people report clergy abuse, because very, very often after they report clergy abuse, they are treated to further abuse by either the local church or the Unitarian Universalist Association. Very, very often people who complain about clergy misconduct are shunned and ostracized and even punished in various ways by, as I said, the leaders and members of their local church, and or the Unitarian Universalist Association people who are supposed to deal with such things. So, I've brought 2 complaints about essentially non-sexual clergy misconduct to the appropriate people within the Unitarian Universalist Association, and on both times They did absolutely nothing to hold the minister accountable, and I was actually lambasted for, oh here. So this woman going into the church is illustrating the willful ignorance and psychological denial that's so common with Unitarian Universalists confronted by these things. She's singing a song, and basically it's the equivalent of blocking her ears. You know, she just doesn't want to know the truth about Unitarian Universalist clergy misconduct and Unitarian Universalist cover-up and denial thereof. So that is just one example of the very high level of willful ignorance and psychological denial that takes place. So I got a nod from this woman entering the church. It seemed almost a respectful nod. So that was interesting. The police car that's driving away there is a Metro section police car, so I don't think it will be intervening in my protest. There's been many SPVM police interventions in my protest over the years. Definitely dozens, possibly even measured in the low hundreds. You know, I'd be very surprised if there's less than 100 interventions all told from the start of my protest in May of 1998 until now. So, oh, here they come. Are they gonna? Okay, I thought they were gonna start watering down my slogans, but no, it's just a woman cutting some flowers. So, anyhow, we'll just continue walking back and forth here and displaying our unsafe sect picket sign. Got a bus coming here. And yes, a few people did have a look at the sign and also the car. So yeah, it's big, huge letters, can't really miss it. Unsafe sect. And I think most people can catch the double meaning there. But it's of course a play on the term safe sex, and it does in fact allude to sexual misconduct by Unitarian Universalist ministers, which can be properly described as unsafe sex. Anyhow, especially when it's rape or pedophilia. Let's let this woman pass here. So we have 3 chalk slogans on the sidewalk, and we have a total of 4 picket signs. My picket signs got somewhat depleted as a result of theft and vandalism on the part of Unitarian Universalists, and I also managed to lose a few when I accidentally left a bag of them behind at another protest. You know, I went straight from this protest to another one and sort of put the bag aside, just going back a little while, and forgot to retrieve it. So I basically lost a handful of picket signs when I did that. We're working on, you know, upgrading the picket signs, new slogans, new you know, even reprinting of the older ones, because, you know, sometimes, you know, the older signs, some of them are like more than 10 years old, and the photocopies are fading and so on. So, you know, slowly but surely getting back. I'd like to get back to half a dozen or so, if not 7 or 8 picket signs. And but the chalk slogans are very visible, and they certainly get the message across. In fact, prior to starting to run the video, when I was actually writing the slogans, had a good conversation with a member of the public about the issues. And, you know, her point was, well, it's not just the Unitarians, you know, all churches do this, you know, all churches cover up and hide clergy abuse and so on. I said, well, yes, I agree, but, you know, a lot of people don't know that the Unitarian Universalists do it too. She came back with, you know, anyone who thinks would know. The problem is a whole lot of people don't think, including Unitarian Universalists. I mean, I can confront Unitarian Universalists with solid evidence of A, Unitarian Universalist clergy sexual abuse, and B, UUA cover-up and denial of clergy sexual abuse, and they will just willfully ignore it. They'll just pretend it's not true, even though there's almost indisputable evidence, newspaper reports, and so on. Huge amount of willful ignorance and psychological denial on the part of Unitarian Universalists about their clergy abuse problem, and outright lies told by top-level UUA leaders such as UUA moderator Jim Key in an apology of all things. In June of 2014, a UUA moderator, Jim Key, stood up in front of thousands of Unitarian Universalists at the General Assembly of the Unitarian Universalist Association in Providence, Rhode Island, and in the middle of his moderator's report to the UUAGA, he inserted an official apology, a formal apology to victims of clergy sexual misconduct. And that apology actually minimized the extent and seriousness of clergy sexual misconduct in general. He said only a small number of ministers were guilty, when in fact over 400 Unitarian Universalist churches out of a total of around 1,000 have been affected by clergy sexual misconduct of one kind or another. That's, you know, 40%. But the worst thing he said, and this is an exact quote, "There were no incidents of abuse of children or elders in my investigations." So he's claiming to have investigated clergy sex abuse and found no evidence of abuse of children. This is what's known as a brazen, bald-faced lie. And on that note, we're wrapping up this segment.